This is my 2.3 fatigue and recovery. So in this presentation I will be talking to you about causes of fatigue. So introduction. In this presentation I am going to discuss how different sports and activities affect how quickly you fatigue and how you can prevent it. For example, I will be comparing sprinting events to long distance events. I will also be comparing factors such as muscle fibers, energy systems, and supplementation. If an athlete has a larger creatine store than an athlete who doesn't have as big of a creatine store, then the athlete with the larger store is going to remain in the PC system for longer, whereas the other athlete is going to enter the lactic acid system quicker, which is more fatiguing. If they have a larger store of creatine, then they will range from the 3 to 10 seconds, so they'll be more likely to sustain up to the 10 seconds, whereas an athlete without the supplementation would only go for about 3 to 5 seconds. The quicker you enter the lactic acid system, the lower intensity you will start working at, which will have an effect on performance. For example, a sprinter is going to benefit from supplementing with creatine because that's a short distance event, so they will only be using their ATP PC system. However, a marathon runner wouldn't benefit from supplementing from creatine because they hardly use their ATP PC system. They are always, throughout the event, they are using their aerobic system. However, at the beginning of the event, they will be using the ATP PC system for up to around 6-7 seconds when they first get going. So this is a graph to show Ellis's fatigue index. This graph shows that Ellis has a good fatigue index and doesn't fatigue quickly. Ellis starts off at a value of 8 for power and only reduces to 6.5. This shows that Ellis is predominantly has slow oxidative muscle fibers because he didn't have very high power output at his peak power. However, he sustained the intensity for the whole duration, decreasing on a shallow gradient. Whereas if we compare Charlie's, then Charlie's fatigues quicker because he starts with a high power output of 13, whereas Ellis only started with 9, so that is a big increase from the power output. However, he finishes off at a value of 3. This could also mean that Charlie has a lot of type 2 fibers, otherwise known as fast glycolytic. This shows that Charlie has predominantly fast glycolytic muscle fibers because he had a very high peak power output. However, he couldn't maintain the intensity for long, so his value ranged from 3 to 13. Fast glycolytic fibers fatigue quicker because they work without oxygen, meaning that the waste product lactic acid builds up in the muscle, fatiguing the muscle quicker. So glucose and glycogen. Type 2 muscle fibers, otherwise known as fast glycolytic, use more oxygen than slow oxidative muscle fibers. Glucose is the energy fuel used when running a marathon. Some people experience a feeling of hitting the wall. Hitting the wall is where the body runs out of glucose stores and you get symptoms of headache, dizziness and nausea. This is known as hyperglycemia. So glucose is the main fuel source for the brain, which is why you will experience those symptoms if your glycogen stores are depleted. However, using glycogen as a source of energy is a slower, less efficient way of getting energy compared to ATP-PC. The formation of new glucose is called gluconeogenesis. So, lactic acid. Lactic acid is a factor which affects fatigue during sport. Lactic acid is a harmful waste product of high intensity, long duration exercise. Lactic acid is produced by the muscles when the body can't supply efficient amounts of oxygen to the body. With an increase in lactic acid, this means that there is also an increase in acidity levels. So if we have too much acidity in the body, it can affect how enzymes in the body work. So the lactic acid system forces us to work at a low intensity due to the fact that the process is longer to resynthesize ATP. However, our body can benefit from lactic acid due to the heart being able to use it as a fuel. So there are positives and negatives to the waste product. As we progress through exercise, we start to accumulate more blood lactate. This is known as OBLA. OBLA stands for onset of blood lactate accumulation. Heat. So during exercise, our bodies produce a lot of heat from the energy that we are using. As human beings, we are very inefficient at utilizing our energy. The majority of energy that we produce, we lose as heat, and this can be up to a massive 80%. However, during exercise, our body core temperature needs to stay balanced, otherwise this can cause us acute health problems such as overheating and heat stroke. So it is important when exercising to keep hydrated and keep hydration levels high. Drinking plenty of fluid, ideally 250 milliliters every 15 minutes of exercise. However, on the other hand, if we aren't warm enough, then our bodies will make physiological changes to help us warm up. For example, if you're running a race in a cold climate, then the hairs on your body will stand up to trap air, and as the air is being trapped, it will warm up, therefore warming up your body. If you were running in a cold climate, then you would wear as many layers as possible, still keeping a natural range of movement. Companies have started to create products that allow us to wear limited clothing yet have a natural movement and feel light. When we are hot, our blood surfaces to the top of our skin, allowing it to cool down. Although with blood getting to the skin surface, this requires a vascular shunt from organs such as the digestive system to get sufficient blood around the body. Carbon dioxide is another waste product produced by the body, and it is produced in the muscles. So when we are working and after a contraction, this is when CO2 will be produced. If we work harder, the muscles will have more of a rapid contraction, and therefore the more carbon dioxide is produced. Chemoreceptors help respond back to our body about the acidity levels in the muscle. So if we have too much acidity in the muscle, then our chemoreceptors will feed back to us, and we will therefore breathe in more with ventilation. CO2 travels in the blood plasma at 3%, carbonic acid at 70%, and carbamine hemoglobin at 23%. Neuromuscular. So, ACH is required to transfer and send the nerve impulse across the synaptic gap. This allows us to have a muscle contraction. There is an all or nothing law where if you have sufficient amount of ACH above the threshold, then the contraction will take place. However, if there is enough ACH, then we won't have a muscle contraction, and this is where fatigue is taking place. For example, if you're running a marathon and you can't run anymore after 20 miles, then this is known as hitting the wall. This links with energy fuels, because if we don't have enough energy fuels, it can't resynthesize ATP, and also nerve transmission will be impaired, meaning that we can't contract our muscles any further. Calcium. Calcium ions are released, allowing actin and myosin to couple to form actomyosin. When our muscles aren't contracting, the calcium ions get removed and the muscle returns to a resting rate. However, if we don't have sufficient stores of calcium, it can impair the rate and force at which muscular contractions can happen and therefore decreasing performance. For example, if you are running a marathon towards the end, fatigue would start because over a prolonged period of exercise, calcium levels can decrease due to leaks within the channels. Furthermore, because we have calcium leaking, it also decreases the amount of calcium released by the sarcoplasmic reticulum. The shortage of muscle calcium means slower, weakened contraction, meaning that performance will be decreased. So as we progress through long exercise, we start to fatigue, and therefore our body can't keep up balancing out our system, and this is where waste products such as lactic acid and carbon dioxide are produced. Due to an increase in these waste products, our pH level drops, however our acidity levels increase. Due to an increase in acidity, there are effects caused on the body such as decrease in conduction of velocity. The conduction of velocity is how quickly a nerve can be sent along the muscle fiber. If we have a decrease in it, it means that the muscle can't contract and respond as quickly as before, which therefore decreases performance. Fast twitch muscle fibers are the first to fatigue because fast twitch muscle motor units require a higher frequency, and when we start to fatigue, the higher frequency can't be supplied, which means that the fast twitch muscle fiber decrease faster. And that was my 2.3 physiology fatigue.